So the goats come to us wrapped in plastic. The first thing we do is always take the plastic off, especially if it's going to hang for a little while in our walk-in. It's very important that it hangs without the plastic so that the meat can dry a little bit on the outside. First thing I'm going to do is take out any organ meats. Removing the kidneys. Here's the heart and the liver. These have already been taken out and tied up. Alright, so I'm going to take the legs off first. When I'm removing the legs, I don't want lots and lots of bone fragments. These are also the largest bone in the body, and so I would rather not have to break the bones. I'd rather just be able to go in and take the leg off without having to break the bone. Now I've got the leg off. Coming from the other side, cutting down. I've taken off the legs without breaking any bones yet. The front quarter and the front leg, there's a shoulder blade that is mostly cartilage. You can see it moving. If you move the leg a little, it wiggles. You can see the shoulder blade comes back to here. So I'm going to take this off with all of the shoulder blade. Now I want to cut on the inside of the shoulder blade and as close to the shoulder blade as possible, so that when I cut my chops, I'm leaving, plenty of meat on the chops. Now I've taken off the front leg. Again, removing the front leg without cutting through the shoulder blade. There's that. Alright, so now we're going to take the head off. I'm going right into the top of the neck, and I'm not applying too much pressure. I have a very sharp knife, and so I'm not applying too much pressure. I'm just going down to the bone. Now, the same technique that I used to take the legs off, I'm going to use also to take the head off, without cutting through any bones. At this point, I've not yet cut through any bones. I've just cut the meat and the connective tissue away from the bones. And then you can snap it a little bit. So the heads come off. The neck I'm going to take off. Take it off right about here, leaving the rest of the goat, the loins and everything are here along the spine, and that's good for cutting chops. It's in the neck. Now, if I've cut through all the muscle and connective tissue just right down to the bone, again I can just pull the bone out of its socket as opposed to chopping through it. And there's the neck. Very careful not to mess up the chops. Those are the most valuable part, and that's the part that I don't want to just throw the chops in the soup or in the stew. I want to be able to sear those, and that's what I'll make the most money off of, is the chops. Now, I'm going to go in on both sides of the vertebrae and take the loins off of the vertebrae. Going in on each side, trying to stay as close as possible to the vertebrae, and then I hear that clicking. That's because I'm hitting the ribs. Coming from the other side, separating the tenderloins from the vertebrae so that I don't damage them when I'm taking the racks off. I'm going to separate the rack from the vertebrae. I go back and make sure that I've gotten rid of any bone splinters. This is the vertebrae with the spinal column, and this will go into the stock. What I'm going to do is cut chops. So I'll cut goat chops off of the rack. Using the cleaver, I'll go through the ribs one by one and try to get as clean of a break as I can. As you get to the center, they get nicer looking. You can see that's starting to look more like a nice chop. There you go. So those are all the chops that we cut off of this goat. So we will braise the shanks, whereas the top part of the leg we can slow roast. Okay. So I'm taking the shank off without breaking any bones. Cutting around the bones. And cutting through the joints. Hind legs are a little meatier. The shanks are bigger. Now onto the stew meat. That's one portion. So out of the neck I got 5 portions of the neck, and then the shanks, that's 1 portion each. The stew meat. This is the belly flap. The belly flap gets braised too. The whole goat has been broken down. The head and the bones are going to get simmered for a long time, probably simmered overnight in water, a little wine, and some mirepoix and maybe some aromatics like bay leaves. And then all the meat gets pulled off, and that gets used in tacos. These are the goat chops. These are the most valuable part. This is the most valuable part of the goat chops with the loins. These will get roasted or grilled. The legs that we'll wrap in banana leaves and slow cook. Then you've got all the braising meat. These are the shanks. There are 4 shanks per goat. The ribs and the belly flaps and the neck. All of this will get braised together. The organ meats over here. We'll cut these up, slice them thinly, marinate them in chili paste, and skewer them and grill them.